All right, I'm going to pop that link one more time just to make sure everybody has it into the chat. And we'll go ahead and get started. The first couple minutes are always me saying hi, introducing myself. So that'll let the stragglers get in, or people who are taking care of themselves like the adults that they are. Welcome to the last breakout session. That's kind of exciting. We made it to the end of day 2 here. I'm Lisa Snow. Hi. If you're feeling up for putting on your cameras, I always like to see faces, but I totally understand after a long day of virtual PD, we're probably all pretty tired. And maybe not feeling camera ready, which is totally fine. I am going to introduce myself on the next slide a little bit more in depth. But the presentation that I have is on Genially, which is the link in the chat, and it's this link will not die or go away or disappear. So like I just will leave the Genially open indefinitely so you can access anything that you need in that Genially or anything like that. And so that is available to you, and it's interactive, and there's lots of like linked resources and things within it. So just want to make sure that you are aware of what that is. I went Gatsby themed because this is English literature, language arts. And so I thought, why not? We'll be a little like 1920s. But I just want to show you all some things and get you playing with some things that I have been using in my AP Lit class to help my kids access literature at a deeper level. And that's really helpful. So that's what we're going to do today. So just a brief introduction to me. Here is my avatar from Padlet, I Can't Draw. So that's that one. I have a lot of things attached to my name here, but my biggest, I think, things that I'm proud of as an educator is I'm a national board certified teacher. I'm also an ISTE certified educator. So part of those communities, which I think has been really beneficial professionally. So, but I'm in a lot of other things too. I thought I'd make a 1920s avatar for this presentation, so I played around with AI, and if you click this one, it'll pull up the original picture I fed to Copilot, as well as an alternative image it gave me, trying to create kind of a Art Deco 1920s avatar of myself with my glasses. So this was my favorite of them, but it was really interesting to try to get AI to create an avatar that worked within what I was trying to do. So playing with some prompt engineering there, and that's just like a little freebie. So for you all, kind of keeping an eye on the chat. Ooh, we're actually in Sammamish, Sherry. So if you grew up in the Seattle area, I teach in Sammamish. So
Where do you, okay, you have to tell me where you teach because I taught at Discovery in
oh,
Sammamish.
we're down the street. We're on 228th. We're right by we're right between Eastlake and Skyline, but we're at Eastside Catholic.
Oh, yeah, I know where that
Yeah,
is. Oh, I love it. Okay,
yeah.
my best friend still lives there.
Well, very good. Well, that's where I am right now in Sammamish, Washington. I usually just say Seattle because most people don't totally know where that is. But yeah. All right. So I, as an English teacher, and I've been teaching English for 17-ish years now. Geez, that's a long time. I find that there are some challenges sometimes. Oh, get somebody in here with teaching literature. And so I've kind of isolated some like 3 kind of umbrella challenges that I think AI can actually help with. One of them is like engagement. Sometimes when I'm giving the kids, like, we just finished Hamlet, and they're like, this is really old, and why do I have to read this? And that the engagement piece, right, can be challenging. So how can I make it fun? How can I make it collaborative? How can I connect it to their lives themselves, right? What they need relevant in their world now. I think the other aspect is critical thinking. We're always, I think, in every discipline, but I think especially in literature, trying to get them to read between the lines, to think critically about what they're examining, to support what they're saying with evidence from a text, to really kind of dig in, consider sources, consider point of view. I think about as well, like Lang, considering purpose and audience and intention, right? And I think that's all a part of what we're doing in English class. Um, Sometimes the kids get super intimidated um, by literature. Sometimes when the language feels old, or especially I find with poetry, I get kids who are like, "This is hard. Why is it so dense? I can't understand what it means. Imagery paints a picture in the reader's head." And I'm like, "Yes, it does, but what picture?" And so trying to get them past that like hurdle, right? That intimidation hurdle. And then like I'm sure we've all heard multiple times, like, when am I ever going to use this? Like, I'm never going to need this going forward. And so this idea of relevance and access for them to feel like there are entry points. And I feel like there's some ways that we can use AI to help get them in, even without needing to, like, I still teach Hamlet. Uh, so how can we use AI as a way to kind of get them into this and provide some of those access points and those engagement points and those interest points? So that's kind of the goal of what I've been doing with AI in my lit class. Um, all right, so here's kind of my approach. When I'm wanting to deal with engagement, right, I'm thinking, okay, what can I do to engage the kids? How can I get them engaged? Also monitoring the chat here and letting people in. Okay. Um, so students engage when they're able to play. They're able to do things that are collaborative, to make choices for themselves, or like investigate and then try again. When there's kind of a like a aha moment or a fun outcome, and I feel like there's some AI ways to do that. Um, Students need a place to start. So oftentimes that blank page becomes really intimidating for them. And so how can AI give them like a starting point that's not a blank page, right? So that we can get over that intimidation hurdle. Um, the other intimidation hurdle is that like sense that they're tempted to use AI anyway. And so then they're like, it's illicit, or like I can get around the rules. I have high school students, and so they just love the idea of like pulling one over on somebody else and being sneaky. So they're tempted to use it, they're going to use it. So like we can help them use it so that they're not intimidated by it, or they're not doing it because they're intimidated by something, right? So that there's like a balance that can be struck there. um, AI is one of the most relevant skill sets for the future. Full stop. Period. End of story. Literature is super relevant too. I wouldn't be an English teacher if I didn't believe that literature was like intensely relevant to their humanity, to their thinking, to who they are in the world. But they need both. And I think if we can bring them together, there's a AI buy-in that comes with that I think can be really like helpful for students. And then also, right, like reading literature requires inference, visualization, sentiment analysis, and AI can support students in a lot of that. And so that there's like this kind of ability to kind of give them some AI skills and also help them with English interpretation skills and push them deeper in ways that maybe we hadn't really been able to do before, or students might have found intimidating before. And then the last one is, right, like AI requires students to examine its own product. So my students are never going to do something with AI and not edit or examine the product that it creates. Full stop. We don't just wholesale take something from AI without considering it. So that is an exercise in literacy and critical thinking. Like that is critical thinking. They're critically engaging with a source, with a text, whether visual or linguistic, and they are engaging that critical thinking muscle. And so it develops the same literacy skill, just in a slightly different application. So those are kind of the kind of ways that I approach this. Are there any questions? You're feel free to unmute, feel free to jump in the chat. I have 3 screens, so I'm like, I can see all the things. If you need anything, are we feeling okay? Yeah, okay. I will keep going. Stop me if you have a question, please. All right, so 3 projects I've done with my students. Yay! All right. So the first one I had my students do was in a romantic poetry unit. So I gave students a collaborative project where they were working in small groups, 3 to 4 students max each group. And they were taking time to visualize and discuss romantic poetry. Um, we've been really working hard on vehicles and tenors in terms of figurative language. So looking at um, metaphors and similes and what's being compared, what's the visual, and then the impact of that, and really thinking about how can poetry, like not just having imagery paint a picture, but like literally what's the picture, right? So let's literally make the picture. So on this project, there's a couple places you can click on this page. This little guy up here says show interactive elements, and it'll tell you where the links are, which is kind of nice. Um, but if we click on the title of any of these, it's going to bring us to the actual assignment. So this is a Canva template you can save and use in your own Canva, and I'll show you the student work example. But basically what I did, can everybody see the Wordsworth example? Okay, perfect. So basically what I did was I gave them a sample of a couple things I pulled out of a sonnet called from to Wordsworth. And I picked out a quote. So thou wert as a lone star whose light did shine on some frail bark in winter's midnight roar. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, what is the picture that I'm supposed to be seeing here? What is the visual element here? And so I was like, okay, well, he's like a guiding star. And it's like, even when they're like a figurative ship lost in the dark, it like helps them find their bearing. And so then I used Sketch to Life in Canva, where I drew a picture, a very bad picture, of a ship and then a star and a dark night. And then I kind of described it a little bit. And this image right here is what the AI made, which was really helpful. Like that kind of in visualize, or like I could see what I was trying to kind of get at and think about. This one is like the rock built refuge stood above the blind and battling multitude. This one, instead of using the sketch to life, I did the text to image from Canva's Magic Studio, where I just described like a fortress on a hill, kind of deserty, and I kind of described what I wanted, and I worked on thinking through what I was visualizing. And it took me a couple generations on that one, but then I created this image, which to me talks about shelter and protection, much like a castle. There's like this idea of safety, loyalty, and leadership. And so this is my sample for my students. And then I gave them instructions around like some groups had Ozymandias by Percy Shelley. Some groups had I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth. And then they were to pick at least 3 things from the poem to imagine, to visualize. And they could either sketch those, sketch to life, they could text to image, they could use Copilot's image creator, they could use Dolly, they could use anything they wanted as long as they were putting it into the whiteboard. And then they had to explain in a sticky note like how the image was helping them understand or develop ideas or themes in the poem. So that's a template for you to start with, but I'll show you what it looked like when I did it actually with my students. And that's if you click the picture. So this is where all the kids are working on the same whiteboard. And I went back in and kind of divided them up so that they were kind of by poem a little bit more. But you can see like here, right? This is one of the students worked really hard on kind of getting that trunkless legs and the visage half shattered, right? And then this idea is like this oppressive image, and then the sheer holding dominion. But then again, there's like this desolation. And so it's like this faint memory, right? And so this concept of like the image goes away, but the sculptor's image, like the sculptor's idea of the person remains. And so by playing with the image and really thinking about those words, Cameron here was able to really get, and I should have taken Cameron's name off of that, was really able to get into thinking about what thematically is going on in Shelley's poem. And then we also got, and I really appreciated this one down here, when they like thought through somebody who's like in the I wandered lonely as a cloud, thinking through like when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, right? So here they've got someone who's really got this kind of desolation almost, right? This physical position of someone then wanting to wander lonely or kind of wander out into something different. In the world. And some of the kids, like obviously, were not kind of as thoughtful as others, right? Because you've got some of those, but I feel like some of them really did like think through, right, the daffodils, and then this idea of like the daffodils always being together can be a symbol or a sign of hope and joy within this kind of sorrowful reality for a lot of the romantic poets. And so kind of trying to think thematically and to visualize what they're seeing. I liked this one too, because it's like a dude wandering through some daffodils. Which kind of feels very Wordsworthian to me. So hopefully that gives you kind of an idea of what they were kind of working on and playing around with in that particular assignment. So that's this poetry one. Here's one I did with Hamlet, and I did it a couple different times in a couple different ways, but this one is using um, his very first sonnet, the "Oh that this too solid flesh would melt." And so what I had the students do, and this just takes you to the actual Padlet, is I had them use Padlet's I can't draw feature, which if you've never used it in Padlet, it's this little, it's this magic AI art generator. If you can't see it on this original piece, you just click the three dots and it'll come up and it's called I can't draw. But I basically told them that they had to take pieces of the poem and use I can't draw to create 5 key imagery pieces from the soliloquy. And what we really found fun as a group is going back in and looking at the different ways that the AI created and we selected some of the same lines, so that "oh that this too solid flesh would melt," right? We've got tons of different images, and I particularly like this one at the end here because it feels really like, ooh, this is like bloody like Hamlet and kind of getting into it. And then we discovered there were some issues with the concept of the satyr. And so here's the satyr and Hyperion when he's comparing Claudius and his father. And some of the kids had trouble figuring out how to get that to really compare. So we get like, this is I to Hercules, which feels a little bit like, yes, close, but the kids, this one I think is one of the better ones with Hyperion and a satyr, kind of this bigness of Hamlet's dad and this littleness of Claudius. So what I found in this one is the kids were really starting to get into like what was actually creating what they wanted and what wasn't, and how they could like play around with the image generator prompt to get it to really show what they visualized. And then they were starting to visualize even more, right, as they're talking about it. The unweeded garden in this one I thought was really thoughtful as well, kind of with this almost like monstrous form within it, and kind of talking about how Hamlet sees the world after the death of his father and really talking thematically about that. So it opened up a lot of really nice conversations that we were having with each other about the ways we can visualize the text. And the last one is giving the students like a chance to actually use AI to start a project. And so this one is, I have my students create these like really souped up kind of essentially Spark Notes, but like AP level version where they're creating these massive novel review projects for for getting ready for the AP exam. And so this is our project, and this is we are having them actually use generative AI to start each of their answers. So we're just acknowledging the fact that all 10 of these required elements they can do with generative AI, but it's not going to be great. Like it's not going to be really thoughtful. It's not going to be as analytical as I want it to be. So what we're having them do is start by taking like this particular prompt and asking generative AI to create the starting point, and then they're going to go in and use this edit framework, which if you were in my session yesterday, I talked about, but they're going to evaluate it. They're going to determine what's accurate, what's inaccurate, add, identify if there's any bias or misinterpretation. AI loves to make themes single words, and my kids know that's a thematic topic and not a theme. And so they're going to have to make sure that they fix all those thematic topics um, and then really transform it so that we should be able to see what portions of the project the AI gave them and what they brought to the table and added in. And then cite those AI sources so that we're not letting them start from a blank page. And we're also not just saying, here's a project that's not super AI resistant and you can just go let SparkNotes or AI think for you. We're asking them to think and let it push and augment them instead of the other way around. And then the other thing that I built into here, if you did anything with School AI yesterday, is I built a sidekick for them. And you are welcome to join and play around, but I built a sidekick that is to help them create or develop their ideas around their college level review sheet. So what novel or play? Well, I have Beloved. And then it's gonna start kind of moving through right. Okay. So to start a review sheet, could you summarize some key plots in the novel? Right. So then the AI is asking them to do some of the work as well, so that they have a kind of starting point and a thought partner. Yeah, I'm happy to share my stuff from yesterday as well. For those of you, I'll pop another Genial lead link in there for you. Yeah. So those are my kind of 3 projects. Are there any questions about those right now? No? Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes here to play. So take one of the 3 activities on the previous slide and kind of think about how you could use that in your classroom with your kids. Is there a way to help students visualize and visually interpret poetry? Could you make a visual poem in Padlet? Could you, structure an assignment with an AI brainstorm or an AI rough draft that helps kids have a starting point that then they're building from? They're never going to stop there, right? And then on the next slide, I have a Padlet. So if you want to play around with popping in some I can't draw features into Padlet, you can do that. And again, if you click the little plus and you click these 3 dots, I can't draw is right here. Looks like magic. Okay. And it's just it's an image generator that's built into Padlet, and Padlet is free. And the kids don't have to log in to use it. So that's really nice in terms of privacy and those kinds of concerns. And so I just want to give you a few minutes to play. I am here. I'm gonna go pull that other Genially out for everybody, so you have access to what I did yesterday as well. And if you need me to help you get started, let me know. I'm happy to help, but I just want to give you some time to play, and then I'll give you my like 3 bonus activities. Sound good? Okay. Thank you for the head nods. That's very helpful. we feeling about coming back in about 3 minutes, or are we ready to kind of come back, or is 3 minutes too long, too short? I'm responsive. Come back now? Yeah, I'm seeing nods, maybe. I'm flexible. I want it to be time that's good for you all. You can type in the chat. You can give me, sounds good? All right. So we can go back. This Padlet won't disappear either, so you are welcome to add ideas. And play around. I really do like Padlet's AI features for use with kids because they don't have to log in. So that can be really helpful in terms of security, and it doesn't really get blocked, and it's kind of like a message board style, and the kids can access it and kind of play around in it in this interactive way, which I really appreciate. Okay, so bonus activities using chat bots. These are fun. School AI and a couple of the other AI platforms that are kind of geared towards schools are now offering kind of these customized chat bots, but you can turn ChatGPT 3.5, you can turn Bar, or is it Gemini now? You can turn kind of any chatbot into a literary character. Um, and so that's what this one is. So this is just a chat GPT transcript that I told it. I was like, I want you to be a literary character, and here's who you are. So you're Victor Frankenstein. I'll zoom in a little bit. From the book Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. You need to limit your knowledge base to what Frankenstein's is in the book. Answer questions the best you can with deep insight into characters and themes, and please write in the style that Frankenstein would speak. And then we get the chat that starts to kind of try to use 19th century. So like, I shall endeavor to channel, right? So they're kind of elevate the speak. And then of course, then I had my students actually lob out questions. And so of course, because I have 12th grade boys, where do I get bones to build a guy from was the first question. But I loved the answer, right? And we talked about, does this feel accurate to Frankenstein? Is this accurate to the text, right? I must implore you to reconsider such a morbid pursuit. The creation of life from inanimate parts is a grave and perilous endeavor. My own experiences have shown me the devastating consequences that can arise from meddling in the natural order. And so then we're able to have a conversation like, does this sound right? Is this thematically relevant or connected to the text? And the kids were like, oh, this is really interesting. And like, how am I feeling? How are we feeling about his response? And then some kid wanted to ask about like, can I marry Elizabeth, or is that just your thing? Because again, they're high school students. But the answers give this kind of interesting kind of response and thinking about right, like choosing for yourself. There's always the question about like, who's at fault here? Should you have created the female monster or not? And they can just have a conversation. And then, he talks about in the response about the death of Elizabeth and Clerval, the AI says, trying to see where it is. Indifferent to my feeble attempts at manipulation. The kids are like, he didn't make any attempts. Like, he abandoned him. And so we asked, we're like, hey, dude, like, what were your feeble attempts? Because pretty much you left him like the second he was created, and like ran screaming from the room and had a brain fever for 9 months. So now the kids are like remembering what they read, engaging with the AI, critically examining its responses, calling it when it's not doing it what they think is accurately, and pushing it to get deeper and more thoughtful in its response. And so I think that can be really fun for them. And it like took me 2 seconds to type in this prompt. And then they can have a whole conversation, and it leads to more discussion and more interest. And you can do it with any chatbot. You just have to tell it who it is. Some of the other platforms like School AI now have it built in where you can do that. So that's another way to do it. But I just did it with the free GPT 3.5. So that was nice. This is one that I like to do with a chatbot. My students read a poem every week. And the first day they do a color-coded annotation. The second day they do kind of a theme statement with support. And then the third day they do a summary haiku. I make them write a haiku and I make them distill down to 17 syllables because I want them to really distill. So the first times we were doing that, we took the poem they were reading and we asked the chat to create the summary haiku. And then we asked it to compare the two, like one of the students' summary haikus. So we're like, okay, this is yours. How does your haiku compare to this one? And it actually gave a fairly thoughtful response, right? Like they're both kind of capturing this essence. Like here's kind of what the first one focused on. Here's what the second one focused on. And so it was really interesting to kind of have the kids think about, because the point of that assignment is really to get them into sorry, just one second. To get them into like how to distill down essence and really think about what they want to emphasize and the meaning in a poem, and the kind of key essence of it. And so this was a way to kind of look at how different approaches to that essence can be created. So I used ChatGPT to kind of talk through that. So that was a fun one to do. And then the other one was to have it actually try to create a different speaker. So when we talk about point of view or perspective, shift the point of view, shift the narrative perspective, shift the speaker in the poem. And it gets kind of fun, right? So I popped in Adrian Rich's Storm Warnings into ChatGPT, and I asked them to change the speaker of the poem to a 21st century teenager. um, and then I got this poem which has adapted for a 21st century speaker. And so then we can talk about like, well, how did the diction change? How did the collocation change? How are they getting at some of the same meaning, but in a different metaphor or simile? So you can really get into talking about speaker and perspective by just asking the AI to change the voice. And we did that. So we had the 21st century teenager. We had it come sound like Shakespeare. Um, we had it sound like Barack Obama, which sounded very similar to Adrian Rich. So that one was like not quite as different. And then a fifth grader, which was kind of fun to see it really bring down the level of discourse to be accessible to that fifth grader voice. And then a Taylor Swift song, which is basically the Adrian Rich poem, but it has a chorus and a bridge, which was kind of fun. So there was like ways to really think about how can this poetry be, how would this poetry or this text or this voice be different based on who's the speaker? Because I think that's one of the things with poetry that struggles to get, they get into that what's the effect of the speaker? Why does the speaker matter? Why do we need to know who the speaker is? Because that perspective, right, shifts what we're being told and how we're being told it. So this can kind of get them into that realm. So these are kind of bonus activities that I did with just a generic chatbot that are fun to do with the students. They don't have to have a chatbot. You can do it together, or you could do it separately and then hand them the different options and have them compare them. That way they don't have to have accounts and you're not worried about that privacy component. And because it just depends on the age of kids that you have in terms of access to those chatbots. Microsoft Copilot, I believe, is in most Windows 11 machines now, and most of the kids have access at least to some level of that, which could work as well. So, and then I just had envisioned you playing around again If you want to play around with the bonus prompts, consider a literary character. You can copy the prompt and create a different character for you to interview. So kindergartners would probably love to hear from Bluey or Daniel Tiger. Um, so can you create a Daniel Tiger or a Bluey chatbot for those little ones? Or try a character from the Wings of Fire books. I know my 9.5-year-old is obsessed with those. Or maybe have ninth graders pick the brain of either Romeo or Juliet and talk about their thought process and emotions. Is there a poem or a piece of literature? Um, or even a piece of nonfiction text that you need summarized succinctly, right, in a couple sentences, and then ask the kids to do it and then have them compare, like, how are the summaries different? Like, what is the essence here that we're looking for? Or take a poem and have it change its perspective, right? And again, the same Padlet I have on the next slide. So it's that same Padlet. You can access the link here, but you can play and share. I just want you all to have some ideas and some things to kind of get into and to actually see in your context, because I think that's really important. How can I use this? How can I take this and use it right away? And that really is kind of my last thing. So I'll go back in a second, but I have a link to email me if you need me. I am happy to respond. I'm pretty good with email. I have my own feedback form, but you don't have to fill that out because they made me put this one on here. So you can put feedback on the Sequoia feedback form. But I want to just give you, we've got about 17 minutes and I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to let you play. We can also pull up ChatGPT and make a chatbot and play around with it if you want. I'm happy to do whatever works best for you. I mean, I know it's Friday. For some of you, it's late. My school just ended, so um, it's just 3 o'clock in Seattle. But I know for some of you, it's heading close to 6, so I'm flexible.
I want you to show us how to make a chatbot.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go in and do that. That sounds like fun. Okay, so I find with prompt engineering, and okay, here we go. That's not what I wanted. Okay, let's go to, okay. So I'm going to do it in ChatGPT just because that's pretty easy for me to access. So that's going to chat.openai.com. You do have to have an account on ChatGPT, but it's free. I use my name's not attached to it email for most of those things. Oh, yes. Here, hold on just a second. I'm going to put a link for that in there for you. Hold on. Let me get the form. So here's the survey form. I just popped it in the chat for you all as well, just to have. Okay. If that was the one you were looking for. Angelina. Okay. So where do they put these in there we go. Okay, so here I am in ChatGPT. And so what I like to do with ChatGPT is I like to really be specific about giving it a role. So I use a framework called PrEP. So I give it a prompt, I give it a role, I give it like explicit directions and parameters. So like what can it do and what it can't do. So I say something like, okay, you are, somebody pick a literary character. What you teaching right now? Anybody teaching literature?
I'm teaching Brave New World. Oh, good.
So you're John the Savage from Brave New World by Huxley. You will respond to all questions asked based on his knowledge and beliefs in the novel Brave New World. Answer every question to the best of your ability and sound like John the Savage speaks. Okay. I also like to also sometimes add, like, if there is a term specific to your John's context, please define if you think the interviewer won't know the term, like soma, for example, or something like that, right? And I just say go, and it says, of course. What do we want to ask him?
Maybe like why he doesn't want to take Soma, or maybe what he thinks of the Brave New World once he gets there.
Okay, why don't you want to take soma? Right. So he says, Soma is a tool of control. It means to escape reality rather than confront it. It dulls the senses, suppresses emotions, and stifles individuality. I refuse to take Soma because I prefer to face life's challenges head on, to experience both its joys and its pains, rather than live in a state of artificial bliss. Soma may offer temporary relief, but it strips away our humanity and enslaves us to the whims of the world state. So we could follow up and say, is this the reason, the main reason you don't want to stay in the world state once you arrive? So then he will respond with this idea of it's one of the main reasons. And we could follow up again and say, are there other reasons? And then he gives us another one. And he includes here the lack of genuine human connections and relationships, and then the rigid caste system as specifics. So yeah, I mean, and it literally, like, what I would do is, if you wanted to do this, is I would just go into my sample Frankenstein and copy that and then just change it out. um, I like to, yeah, so, but I like to think about, like, tell it who it is, tell it what the book is and what the parameters are around that. Like, don't talk outside of this novel. I don't want them bringing in, I don't want it bringing in like other movie references or other things like that. I just want the novel. And then, like, you should answer to the best of your ability. Don't say, I'm not going to answer this question. Although unless if you're grilling Frankenstein, he might plead the fifth. But like, tell it to really try and try to sound like the character itself. And it will do it. And again, like, if it's published after 2021, you're hit or miss, because it's not trained on data later than that usually. Unless you're in GPT-4 and it has internet access, which it can now have internet access on GPT-4. But it's a super easy way to create a way for kids to collectively interact. I mean, and we could try, I haven't tried Bluey. Let's try Bluey. My 9-year-old also likes Bluey. So let's see. Let's do a new chat, and I'm going to say, you are Bluey from the Australian TV show. Please respond to all questions as if you are Bluey and sound like Bluey. Answer to the best of your ability. I don't know that this one needs to be more detailed than that because it's like Bluey. We'll see if they know Bluey. Let's see. I haven't tried Bluey. Oh, it does. I'm the adventurous blue healer pup from the Aussie TV show. Ask away. I'm all ears. So what do we want to ask Bluey? Anybody?
Do you like playing with mom or dad better?
Ah, they're both my favorite, but the Bluey has a clear sense. Mom's more imaginative. Dad's awesome. My son just watched this episode. Have you worked more on your dragon drawings? So like referencing like things. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun that they can like interact with a character. You can do it with pretty much anything. So does that help? Hopefully. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I will go back over to the Padlet if you want. There's more. You're welcome to add stuff to the Padlet if you want. I can also demo the I Can't Draw if you want to see that. Otherwise, we could also be done. I can stick around. I'm super flexible.
Lisa, when I was playing around with that Padlet, I can't draw, and I've never done this. It was really cool. But then I wanted to keep like the first picture I didn't love. And then I did the prompt and I just added on. How do I keep making it like your kids did, where they keep going, going, going until they land on what they like?
So those are all, so here I'll show you. Let me pull up the Padlet. But those are, so the different like posts, let me find my Padlet here. There it is. Okay. The different posts in like a column is just a structure that I made in Padlet. So those are all individual posts. But what my kids do is when they come here to the I Can't Draw, right? They give it something, right? And then let's see, I want a narwhal in a rainbow ocean eating fish with a red Yoshi. I don't know. Let's just try that. I like to give it really wackadoodle things. So the kids take a look. I get 4 images. I can kind of take a look. It doesn't really understand the red Yoshi component of my prompt. It's made this kind of look like a red Yoshi as a narwhal. And if they don't like any of these, they can just hit that back button, and then they can go back to I Can't Draw again. They can also like have something in a clipboard that they want to paste if it's like a quotation. So I could post like, let's see, in that sleep of death, what dreams may come. Let's see what it does. That's just to quote Hamlet, and we'll see what it comes up with. This is not super concrete, so I'm not super optimistic, but sometimes the kids start with a quotation. Oh, well, this is actually kind of an interesting approach. Like I would kind of want to look at that. So I can actually click that and it'll load it directly in here to see. And then if they decide they don't like it, they can just click remove and then start over. Yeah. It's not visible to everybody else until they hit that publish button, but they can still delete and I can delete. And if you want the buckets, I'll show you the buckets. I'm going to delete draft. On my Padlet settings, the layout, if you choose the layout, there's a bunch of format options. And so you can have like a wall, a canvas, a timeline, a grid, a stream, and then you can sort them by a variety of things, including like subject, random, and the subject will create some of those columns. And then if you go to like create your own Padlet, and I have a lot of Padlets, so please don't forget about my Padlets here, but you can kind of create, like this is one where my kids put their haikus, and it has the templates like built in. So it has like the columns built in, and that's kind of how I divided them by group. And then I just had them adding to their column, if that makes sense. So Padlet has quite a few options. I also really like the timeline option on Padlet. This is completely separate, where I had them like putting Team Victor was in yellow, and we call the monster Norbert. Team Norbert was in green, and they were integrating their timelines so they understood when things happened because they're told in separate instances. And so I had them do it on Padlet so that then they can see what's happening to the monster at what time versus what's happening to Frankenstein. And so then I'm testing their ability to kind of deal with a nonlinear narrative. So that's another one I had them working on. So Padlet has a lot of different layouts if you haven't played with it that much. And the trick with Padlet for the free version is to archive Padlets as you're done using them. You can export them to a PDF to save them and share them so the kids don't lose the work, but you can have 3 active Padlets on the free version at a time. And then I just, before my professional development department at my school just paid for me to have a full Padlet because I use it so much, I would just export to PDF and like save and then archive. And I just had them, and you can still unarchive them. You just can only have 3 active at a time for the free version. Yeah. Hopefully that gave you a lot. It's almost 3:15 and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Again, this is my email. This Genially will not disappear. I will put the link in the tab one more time just so you have it. They shared the PDF slides that also are hyperlinked, but this actually takes you into the Genially itself. And so you can access all the links. That link down here that says my name, this literally it's like a mail to link. So it will email me, just click it. If you want anything, or if you want to chat, or, whatever. I'm a little island in my department a lot of the time. So it's always nice to talk to other people. Thank you.
This is a random question, but does
Yeah.
AI help you generate the Geniallys, or you do that all yourself?
Genially is not AI yet, although I foresee that it will be sometime soon. But I can show you, so I can go back out. So Genially is amazing and also free for educators. There are a few templates that are not free, that are the plus subscription. And if you want analytics, you have to pay. But so here's my Genially space. If I go to create a Genially from a template, there are literally like a million templates. And I love the gamification section because they have escape games. And they're like pre-made escape rooms. You just add your content. And so anytime you see this little star, that's like premium level. You have to pay to get up to there. But there's a bunch that aren't. And there's like, this one's based on a video game. This one is based off like witchcraft and wizardry, or Christmas, or vintage circus, which is a little creepy. And like, I like this one, the Dungeons and Dragons one. And when you come in, you can kind of actually take a look at the template itself, and see how it works. And it's and then, here he's talking about the gems that you have to get. And then you have to say, like, you have to choose. And then it like walks you through, and then it's like, hey, here's a question to get the earth gem. And so then, like, you have to answer questions. And so this is where you'd like put a question and then the kids pick. And if I pick the wrong answer, it's like, uh-oh. So there's like, and you just use the template and then you can edit all of it on the back end. It's like super fun and really cool. So lots of cool stuff. And I like to do interactive images with the students. So I need to go here in a second, but let's see, where's AP Lit? I made like a Hamlet cast of characters, like interactive image. So the kids can, and I made these all with generative AI, but I basically was like, okay, who's Gertrude? And then I'm like telling them about Gertrude when they click on it. And then up here is like their status and whether they're alive at the end of the play or not. So they can like interact with the image and I can pop that into our LMS and then they can review or go back and check in with characters. So that's another fun way to do it.
That's awesome. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
Of course. I love Genially. It's great stuff. All right, that is 3 minutes over. So please, you don't have to stick around if you don't want. You're welcome to head out. I'm gonna close up this room and then go join the keynote on my phone.